All right, we are back on here. I hope everyone's doing well. Hope all of the Christian family, the black Christian family, is doing well all over wherever you are hearing this video. I hope you're doing well. It's been some crazy times for the black family in the last couple of months, last few weeks. There's been protests. There's been, we get police shootings all the time. We get abusive situations happening to us as a black family all the time. So I just, I really, my heart goes out to all the black family, no matter where you're at. I hope you're doing well. If you have family, stay close with your family. If you don't have family, create family. Love one another. Love one another. Love other black people. Love the black family. Minister to one another. But today, I do want to talk about a topic. The topic today is, why do Christians argue? For those of you all who are joining us on Keys Ministry, what Keys is, Keys stands for Know Your Story, KYS, Know Your Story. And it's specifically for black Christians, because black Christians have a very unique relationship with Christianity, right? We have a relationship with Christianity where, for the majority of us, we learned Christianity from an evil people. We learned Christianity from people who raped our children. We learned Christianity from people who enslaved us, abused us, tortured us, murdered us and our families. So we have a very unique relationship. We would pray to God while we were in slavery. We would pray to God while we were in the slave ship. But then we would also see the same people who were oppressing us and owning us and doing evil to us, praying to that same God and going to church, coming back home and praying to God, and then beating our husbands and our wives, sleeping with our little girls and our little boys. So we have a very unique relationship with Christianity. We couldn't have been praying to the same creator, and we weren't both praying for the creator to do the same thing. Remember, the Confederate soldiers, when they were fighting to keep their way of life, and they were fighting to be able to basically still have us enslaved and have their own free, independent, slave-ran nation, or slave-dominated nation, they were praying to God. Many of the black slaves were also praying, but they were not praying for the same thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So our relationship with Christianity is very unique in this country, and we started Keys Ministry because of the fact that nobody was specifically ministering to black people who are specifically being targeted, specifically being oppressed. If you have not accepted and acknowledged that fact, that we are specifically being oppressed, not all people of color in the same way, not all immigrants in the same way. No, there's something specifically against the black man, the black woman, and the black child in this country and worldwide. But in this country, we're dealing with America, there's something specifically against us. If that wasn't the case, then you would have had white people protesting when all of these killings are happening. If white people even thought that, hey, my child could have been killed like Tamir Rice, white people would have been protesting that. But they do not protest that, because they know, oh, that would not happen to a white kid playing with a toy gun at a park. If a white man thought that he could be killed like Botham Jean got killed in his apartment, white men would have been protesting that, but they do not protest that, because they know we specifically do not have to worry about a police walking in our house and accidentally shooting us. If white women felt like they were going to be threatened and could be killed in their sleep, the way that Breonna Taylor was, be woken up in her sleep and then murdered in her own house, then they would have been protesting that. But they know, oh, that type of stuff does not happen to white people. If white people thought that, hey, we could end up getting killed 60 times by our police when we get pulled over for a traffic stop like Jalen Walker, white people would be protesting that, but they know that would not happen to them, because there's privileges that come with being white. So since all of these things are happening and nobody else seems to want to talk about it, and it's just our issue, I said, let's do a ministry that's specifically for the people who are being targeted by this government, by the elites, by the higher ups, however you want to call it. We call it white supremacy. Dr. Neely Fuller teaches us that, and he names it white supremacy. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, these are psychiatrists. These are people who are doctors in their field that have studied racism all their life, dedicated their lives to it. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson is passed on now, but Dr. Neely Fuller is still alive. But they coined the term white supremacy. That's what white people did. White people called it white supremacy, from Benjamin Franklin Thomas Jefferson, all of these guys, they called it white supremacy. So it's not some made up term that Stanley made up. This is a real system that exists. It's the way that all white people know that these things that happened to Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, any of our other brothers and sisters, they know this stuff won't happen to them because they understand there is a system that gives them benefits and privileges based on the group that they're a part of, which is whiteness. Okay, that's why Keys Ministry was started. Keys Ministry is going to specifically speak to the black Christian specifically, because we deal something specifically. Do you know black Christians, we actually have, and really the topic for today is why do Christians argue? We're going to get into that topic. I'm just kind of bringing in people who have not been following along. We've been on here for Keys Ministry for 4 years, and a lot of you all, you haven't been a part of that. So I'm just bringing you all along. There is a number of different things when it comes to black Christians, a number of different attacks that have happened to black Christian churches. Black Christians are the only group that I know of. I've studied this. I've searched for other groups and seen who else has been attacked like we've been attacked in our churches. Every single decade in the 1900s, a black church was attacked. A lot of us know of the more recent situation with Dylan Roof, who walked into a prayer meeting and just shot 9 people. A lot of us know about the situation that happened in 1968 with the four black girls in Sunday school, and the church gets bombed and all 4 of them die. I think 20 or 30 people ended up injured. No other group, no other Christian group deals with that. No other Christian group has to go to church, and because of the race they are a part of, they might get murdered or attacked at church. Do you understand what I'm saying? This has happened to us all through the 1900s, and even, as I said, Dylan Roof had to be within the last 10 years or so. It wasn't too long ago that happened. We're the only group who that happens to. There's no other Christian group that happens to. We are a specifically targeted group. A lot of times when you are at war with the people, normally the spiritual centers are safe places. Normally it's like, we're not going to deal with you at church, but these people have shown no respect even for you in your aspect of being Christian. I say that because a lot of us, when we're talking about white supremacy, a lot of you all feel like I'm being divisive. You all feel like I'm separating us from white Christians. I'm not separating ourselves from white Christians, but we can't be a part of the same Christianity that was enslaving and raping children, raping men and women. We can't be a part of that same Christianity, because that is the Christianity that was practiced by white people in this country, by the majority of white Christians in this country. I'm not going to say everyone. So obviously there was a different version of Christianity going on that we cannot be a part of, that we were not able to be a part of. We looked at Christianity while we were enslaved, and we related instantly with the children of Israel. We related with the fact that, hey, there was a group of people oppressed, waiting on a savior, waiting to be saved, waiting to be free. That is what we connected with. The slave owners connected with the version of Christianity that says, slaves, obey your master. This is the lot God has been given, the lot God has given you in life. You need to obey us. Which version of Christianity would you accept if you were a slave? Okay? So that's Keys Ministry. A lot of people have an issue with Keys Ministry, and it's not that many. It's, you can go back and watch a lot of the videos from the last 4 years. I don't, have a huge following on here. We don't have a huge following, but the people who do watch the videos, a lot of you all message me, a lot of you all talk with me, and I appreciate it. I put my email in the description box for every video. I allow you all to contact me directly to my email. A lot of you all know me from social media, and you all message me on there. That's perfectly fine. I'm gonna allow those ways to be open still. But one thing we're not gonna do is we're not gonna argue. There's not gonna be any arguing. I am not going to be arguing with Christians. I'm not gonna be arguing with people who are seeking truth. And if you come to me and you're presenting a spirit of arguing, I just can't be a part of that. There's nothing I'm going to be arguing with you about. What I know, I know. What I do not know, I do not know. And what I'm learning, I'm learning. That's it. There's no need to argue with anybody, and there's no need to be right about anything. I'm not trying to prove myself right to any of you all. Do you all know that many of you all are at black churches where your ministers, you have highly educated ministers. Sometimes your minister might be the most educated person in the church. You have ministers who are trying to teach you something. You have ministers who are trying to communicate and lead the people forward, and they can't do it because people in the church are still arguing over simple stuff, silly stuff. You have ministers who are trying to take the congregation and teach them history and teach them deeper knowledge, give them the deeper hidden knowledge of things, and people in the church are still arguing over stuff like instruments. People in the church, it's like the children of Israel sitting there and they're about to cross the Red Sea and they're still arguing, the Egyptian army's right behind them, and they're still arguing over who's going to be the first one to walk in. It don't matter. Let's go. God got a land flowing with milk and honey for you, and you can't go into the land flowing with milk and honey because you're still arguing about who took your last little piece of manna the day before. You got ministers, youth ministers, worship leaders. You got people with ideals in these churches. And I grew up in black church. I've been all around the country and seen different black churches. This is the same thing everywhere. I'm not speaking about one church in particular. I'm definitely not speaking about, down on one congregation. I'm talking about in general. There's people who watch these videos from Texas to LA to Arkansas. I know there's people who watch videos in all of these different places, so I'm not singling anybody out. This is for all black Christians. That spirit of being argumentative has to go in order for black Christians to go to the next level in Christianity. Respect your ministers. Allow your ministers to give you new ideals, new thoughts, new knowledge. They study this stuff. I got to a point with myself where I realized, dude, listen, I'm not arguing with anybody about this Christian stuff. When it comes to this Christian stuff, when it comes to this Bible stuff, I'm not arguing with nobody about it. I grew up in church. I've been taught by parents, grandparents, great-grandparents about this Bible stuff. Don't need to prove anything to anybody except for my Creator. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when y'all are running around here and you're arguing with the ministers, you're arguing with the teachers, y'all are more in line with the biblical people. Remember Christ talks about these people. Christ talks about these people. He says, "Oh, Jerusalem, you who always kill the prophets, you always kill those sent to you. There's always someone coming to you with some new knowledge, and God's people were always rejecting it." Nothing's changed today. Ministers come to you with some new knowledge, and you want to stone them. I come on here, and I'm giving y'all some knowledge that really a lot of black Christians just haven't heard before. I'm realizing I've been in certain circles. I've been blessed by God to be in certain circles. That just, in many situations, I was the only black person in these spaces. I've been to Azusa Pacific University, Harding University, Pepperdine University, Abilene Christian University. Those are the top, in my denomination, Church of Christ, those are the top schools of study. I've sat down with scholars at all of these places, Fuller Seminary. I've sat down with scholars at all of these places. I've been in circles with scholars and people who write commentaries that I don't even remember. People remind me of the people that I've met and talked with, and people. I remember at Azusa Pacific, Rick Warren is the guy who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, and my teacher, he was good friends with Rick Warren. He would go and have lunch with him and then come over to the class and talk about what they talked about. And honestly, in that class, I was the only black person in that class. And this man knew his Bible. He knew the history. He was deep with it. I don't say any of this stuff to brag about my knowledge. I'm someone who's just trying to seek and learn myself. But I'm not going to be arguing with anybody who's just wants to argue based off opinion and stuff that don't even matter. The first reason I'm not going to argue with anybody is because of the fact that there is no example in the Bible of Christ arguing with anybody. You cannot find me one example in the Bible of Christ arguing with anyone. There was stuff that Christ taught to people. There was stuff that people rejected. When people rejected what Christ taught, what did he teach his disciples to do? Dust off their feet, move on to the next household, move on to the next person. You don't sit there and go back and forth with anybody and argue. I'm seeing Christians, man, on Facebook publicly arguing. I'm talking about chains of hundreds of messages, ministers jumping in, everybody's giving Bible facts, people swinging swords around. Remember, the Bible's a sword. People just swinging swords around, throwing swords at each other, thinking nobody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt with all that sword throwing everyone's doing. And this is public. Why would anybody want to go to church when they see Christians arguing like this? It's disgusting. I'm starting to realize why Keys really got started, because see, I used to be in ministry more from the inner circles. I used to be more on the inside, actually at the pulpit, actually in the Bible classes teaching. And really, God pulled me away from all of that. And I'm thankful he did. He pulled me away from all of that just based on things that happened in my own personal life. I got pulled away from that. And when he led me back on here to YouTube, I realized, oh, Christ had me on here on YouTube, because these are things that I could never say from the pulpit. I couldn't have talked about half of the videos that I've talked about on here if I was at a pulpit, been stoned before I get out the door. I couldn't be specifically talking to the black Christians, not in this day and age with where the mindset of the black church is at. You couldn't do that. People feel like I'm being divisive on here. I wish I could show y'all some of the messages I get, some of the emails I get, some of the comments people say. People feel I'm being divisive on here. I'm just speaking to black Christians. I'm talking about the black Christian experience, the black Christian, specifically the black Christian experience, because it's a specific experience. I'm specifically talking about the black Christian history because it's a specific history. We have a specific history. When they're talking about how good and they came over here to have spiritual freedom, that's not our part of Christian history. That's not where we were at in the history. White people were coming over here getting spiritual freedom. We weren't getting that. We fell into slavery. We fell into slavery. So we're not going to be arguing with anybody about anything. A lot of people feel like, Christianity is not supposed to be for a specific race of people. Go tell that to all the white churches that are still white only to this day. Y'all have no idea how many people have talked to me about white. I have a video on here talking about can you be black and Christian. I have a video on here on this channel called White People's Christianity. I think I have a couple of videos called White People's Christianity. Oh man, those videos made people mad. And that's good. I love it. 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 That made people mad. There was an article in the Sacramento Bee talking about all the white churches in America that are still white only. White Christian churches that are white only. Go talk to them about being divisive in Christianity. Don't come on to this YouTube channel and talk to me about being divisive in Christianity. That's what we deal with over here. We deal with the division that was someone divided us off. We were taught that us and all of our people were evil. There's a great book, you all, I recommend. This is mandatory reading for black Christians. It's called The Religious Instruction of the Negroes by Charles Jones. I've recommended this book a number of times. See, when I'm getting on here talking to y'all, I'm not speculating about stuff and giving y'all opinion. I study this stuff. Been studying this stuff all my life. The Religious Instruction of the Negro by Charles Jones. This was a white minister, a Christian minister, owned about 40 slaves. You decide how much of a brother in Christ he was to you. But he wrote an article. He wrote basically essays in the book where he's explaining and talking about the history of how the evolution of why white people ended up teaching black people Christianity. It wasn't really to save you. It was really to pacify you, because see, as long as you didn't have that mentality of love your enemies and pray for those who hurt you and mistreat you, as long as you didn't have that mentality, you were still like in a humane mindset of being like, nobody should put their hands on me and I don't fight back. Nobody should kill my child. A young man should not be killed, shot 60 times based off of a traffic stop. I don't care if he ran or not. Shouldn't happen, right? But then they agreed upon, that book talks about it. It breaks it down by decades too. It talks about how the reasons why they said, hey, we need to teach the slaves Christianity. All right? This is why we need to know this history, y'all. We need to know this history. I'm not going to be able to finish the this whole conversation that we're having right now. I'm going to put these videos out in maybe 2 or 3 different parts. So we're going to end this video right now, you all. Why do Christians argue? There's no reason for Christians to argue. You don't have an example of Christ arguing. You really don't have Peter and Paul give examples of arguing. I know there were some disagreements there, but arguing was not a thing. There's no Christ-like spirit about arguing with somebody about Bible. You're trying to be right about what style of worship is right. You're trying to be right about what day you're supposed to worship, and you think there's no reason, there's no being right over this type of stuff. It gets you nowhere. It gets you nothing. You gain nothing. There's no example of Christ doing it. Christ taught people. He asked questions to people, or he just left people alone. He left them with their own beliefs and thoughts, all right? I will get back on here and record part 2 for y'all later on. This is just the start of this conversation of why do Christians argue, and also give you all a little bit of the history of Keith's ministry. For those of you all who are new on here, this video will give you a good give you a good view of all those things. As always, you all support the Cash App. As always, this is not a church-sponsored channel. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I've been doing this for 4 years. This is not something I'm doing for the money. I'm not doing it for the viewership. So if you're connected with the information and you appreciate the information and you appreciate what I'm giving out to black Christians, go ahead and support on Cash App. I appreciate it. I definitely do, and I'll be back on here real soon. Email in the description box. All right. Peace and love to everyone.